people is always the hardest kind of thing to get right? And we grew a lot, and like then we put more structure to it, and then there was too much structure to it, and now we have to go a little bit back and say, hey guys, we're still a startup. We don't need to have all these corporate processes. Just out there, do stuff. And balancing that every day, I think that's the masterpiece, right?
So welcome to today's episode of Leaders on a Mission. Today we're going to be diving into the electrified future of mobility, and with Casper Rasmussen, who is CEO and founder of Monta, who I'm really glad is going to join us on the show today. And we're going to talk about, it's a fascinating journey, the company's rapid rise, what it really takes to build resilient tech in a market that's growing, consolidating and changing by the minute. So we'll get into leadership and vision and fast growth and all the sorts of unseen challenges of scaling a company that really sits in this sweet spot, an intersection between software and infrastructure. So Casper, thanks so much for coming on today.
Yes, and thanks very much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. And just tell me, what drew you to this? Give us some context, I suppose, before you founded Monta, right?
Mm-hmm.
What drew you to this space?
So originally I'm an electronical engineer. Sorry, and then so kind of familiar with electronics and the power side or energy side from that. But then I kind of moved my career much into software quickly and mobile apps specifically. So I spent 10 years building up a digital agency where we built a lot of mobile apps for companies all over the world. So got first-hand exposure on like consumer software that way, and what good user experiences could be like, and where kind of how so like high quality the mobile apps ended up being over a decade. And like mobile apps back in 2010, that was like mostly like fun and games and like single purpose apps and all that. And then it became more like what we call like utility apps, like self-service for telcos and those kind of things. And then it steered quickly into mobility. So we also touched a lot on mobility. I did a lot of taxi apps, a lot of food delivery platforms, those kind of things as well. So I feel I had a good kind of tool set to go into this industry. In 2017, I bought a Tesla and got familiar with being an EV driver firsthand. So I think that's the combination, right? That is like I was driving an EV, I was feeling the pains. I knew what good looks like from other industries where they have been like digitalizing quicker. So that was kind of the things adding up. But then I think what really drove my attention and why I got really excited about it was like it was not necessarily just the charging a car and building a consumer app to find a station and pay, but it was actually the energy side. Like what happens when everyone has an EV and we have batteries at home and solar panels and heating pumps and all this like decentralized energy, and where that is heading over the next 10 years. And like the more I kind of thought about it, the more complicated it was. And I think that was what excited me and said like, okay, this is really hard. Like how are we going to solve that? So like all the way from the start when we created Monta, that was kind of the sequence. Now we start with fixing the user experience on charging. We make sure we get access to a lot of assets that way. And then when this decentralized energy becomes more and more the norm, then that we are very well positioned to take a swing at that as well. But it was really because it was super hard, that last thing, that drove my attention to it.
Got it. Yeah. And you set the company up in 2020, right? So
the fall of 2020.
It was a COVID project,
exactly,
essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also you took that jump, right? Because I think previously when you were talking about kind of Monster Labs, right, you were more kind of CTO as well, right? So yeah, like fascinating. You took that kind of jump to kind of founding and being the CEO of the company, right? And did you always have that? Where did that entrepreneurial kind of drive come from? And was that always something that was important to you?
So I'm from a family of entrepreneurs. Like both my parents had a company together for almost 50 years before they retired, and that company did, like, in the start they sold water ski equipment and ended up repairing Bang Olufsen televisions. So like I'm definitely from that family where like you can make your own job, right? And my uncle also had his own companies, and so for sure that was always fascinating, and not just taking a job. And I think I was always like, I had two sides always. Like I was a very social person. I really liked sports and like big friend groups and spending a lot of time at festivals and all that. And then I was always the nerdy one in the group. So like I liked playing computer games. I was really good at math and physics. So I think that was kind of when I then entered the also like the work life. It was just natural to go into the tech side because I really enjoyed that. But very quickly, I also discovered that I was just really good on the leadership side of it as well because I could talk the tech language. I really loved being hands-on, but I also was good at interfacing the business side. And I think at the same time, I could also see like if I was just programming for 8 hours, it was not super fulfilling. I liked it from time to time with good music in my ears, but I liked that thing about doing multiple things on a day. So you spend a little
Right.
bit of time with customers, a little bit of time in like strategy and planning, or what it can be, or like in marketing or everywhere, and then some part which is the product engineering. So I think that I kind of drifted in that direction quickly, and then I would say like CTO is a role which is probably like any C-suite is changing a lot from the size of the company. Like you are probably the lead engineer in the start, and then later on it's a very commercial role where you are spending more time with the business than you are spending with the engineering floor. Um, and especially in Monster Lab. So after so the agency we started ourselves was called Notes, and we sold to Monster Lab and became part of that group, and then was part of the group management there. There, my team was 800 people, meaning like it's pretty far from the day-to-day technology, and it's much more about how we sell this and and what the right combination of technologies and architectures and those things are, putting together teams. Really, that's what it is, and talking to customers. So in that sense, I didn't feel it was that different. But then also, I would say like I think the CEO role is also just like you can make it what you want it to be. Like, and I think this is really the time where we've seen that the most, right? Where you can have some very front figures CEOs, which are either very technical or they're very available online, that they're driving the marketing channels, or they can do like you can shape it to what you want, and then you build the company around that and your team around that. If you don't like to spend a lot of time in spreadsheets and budgets, maybe you get a really good CFO, and then you move on and do something else. And so that's how I thought about it. So when we started Monta, I was also the CTO for a while. Right? I took both, and then a few years back, I could see that I didn't have enough time on the tech side. And then I had a really strong VP of engineering, which was the opposite of me in terms of technical leadership, very much into the team and the processes and the scaling on the operation side of it. And I'm way more on the innovation side. Right? So
got it. Yeah.
So that's how it played out. So the step never really felt like such a big step. Actually, it was just a lot of small.
Got it. It sounds like a lot of yin and yang.
Yeah.
Essentially. Yeah. Tell me just on that topic, because I find it fascinating, my day job, right? For you as a CEO, what are areas of the role, for instance, that you really love doing? And what are a couple of areas that you're not so keen on, as it were?
So I think the two things where I get a lot of energy from and I tend to spend a lot of my time on, but also it's areas where I feel I'm really delivering value. Is I'm very very good at coming in on problems and finding solutions. So as soon as I see a problem, I start thinking about solutions for it. So that's how I spend my time, right? And what that means day to day, that means actually in sales processes, there's a lot of these things where like a customer is coming with an idea about how they want the things to work. and now you need to figure out how that could work on the platform you built without having to build custom things for them, right? So that resonates very well there. And then, of course, in product engineering, on like what is the things we then need to build, and how do we get to the how do we fulfill the requirements without having to build a rocket ship every time, and how can we reuse stuff we just did? So that's why I spend a lot of my time still. I love doing those things, and I think the things I'm definitely trying to spend less time as possible on that is on the budgeting and on the planning.
Right.
That's not my strong side. I like this. I like the strategic sessions where you kind of you can really kind of co-create a strategy together in the room if you have the right energy and the right people. That is a lot of fun, but it's not something you need to do that often. I think if you spend too much time on that, I think it kind of you take your eyes a little bit away from the execution, and it's not that value adding. So we do that every quarter, every 2 months, something like that. Spend some time on that. I think that's my...
Yeah, no, great. Well, look, we'll dive into a little bit around kind of culture and growth in a bit, but why don't we start with just talking a little bit around, tell us a little bit about the core mission of kind of Monta, as it were, and I suppose maybe how that's evolved. This is a crazy dynamic landscape, right? So maybe how that's evolved a little bit.
Also, I think the mission is to make sure that we can electrify the world, right? And we are starting with electric vehicles, so we are seeing ourselves as an enabler for that whole motion, and making sure that it gets high enough quality so everyone can figure out how to charge a car. So that's where we are. Yeah, that's where we are, and that's where we're moving. And that also means that for us, we don't necessarily just want to solve one software thing and then move on. It's actually figuring out what really brings value and how do we raise the bar. And I think in some of the markets where we succeeded and have very high market share at this point, it have been a massive transformation in the market to see how much the experience around charging have grown over the 4 years. And I'm not saying that we are the driving force behind that, but we definitely didn't let the industry sleep, right? There was like, this is now, if you want to follow on what we are going to deliver as a competitor or your own system, this is all the things you need to add now and start thinking about and improve on. So I think there's clear like indications that for sure it's helping. We also managed to get a lot more companies to enter. It was very hard to enter this industry as an operator previously if you had to build everything yourself. Meaning that pricing have been driving down. There's a lot more solutions on the market today. If you're buying home chargers or business chargers or fleet chargers, there's not just one company, right? There's like a lot of options. And I think our solution is part of that, right? That we enabled a lot to go to market, import some hardware from somewhere, productize it into something, and then going for multifamily or going for fleet or going for what it can be workspace charging.
Yeah. And internationally as well, right? This is this is the thing for you, right? As you think about the market, you think about it globally or US, Europe, or how do you think about it?
It's Europe and North America right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So we would love to do more, but I think the DNA we have is like when we do things, we want to make sure it really works well. And we went deep into the financial side as well, meaning that we are regulated now. So we can't just open up in Czech Republic tomorrow and say, now let's go. Like that's a big process, right? We're doing it right now with Canada, and like it's very expensive. We often need to set up an entity. We need to go and get several things certified
Yeah. And what do you think are the main problems that because we're having a little read through beforehand. There's something like 1,000 software and hardware providers in Europe alone in this space, right? Yeah. And it's been one of these markets, right, where it's just absolutely kind of boomed. consolidating a little bit now. So, yeah, what do you do? You know, what problems are you particularly solving? Maybe just outline a couple of them, as it were.
Yeah, so for sure, like there's a lot of software players out there, right? I think there's also many generations, right? There's the generations which started in 2010 and 12, where this was really, really small industry. And then there was the generations up to like 2020, and then the 2020 really start moving quickly. And you see a different type of companies coming in, which are either laser focused, building modern technologies, very data driven, very AI driven. So I think that that's probably the natural way this goes. But for sure, the value generation needs to be high enough for you to earn a spot in the market. And I think a lot are going to suffer either that problem or that they need big scale for this to work, which is actually really hard to do. The markets are pretty small, and the markets where there is a million EVs just have really high competition already. So you're not just walking into Germany at this point and getting market share. And then you can go in the small markets where you could, but there's a lot smaller, like a lot fewer EVs, so it's a lot less interesting. So what we solve very well is that we thought about it from the user experience point of view. We designed the entire system from that lens, which was very unique in the industry, and everyone kind of looked at us and said, like, you're doing it wrong. This is how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to use these protocols, and you're taking a CPO role or MSP role. You can't do both. And we were like, that's not how we are going to think about it. We're going to solve the problems as we see them. So the user experience is a major part of Monta. Then it's a platform. So we provide everything you need, from commissioning of charters to how to run big fleets of 10, 20, 30,000 charters in the same system, where most of our competitors are coming with a component, and then you stitch it together with other things, and you build up your own infrastructure that way. So we are taking like the HubSpot, Salesforce approach to this. Then it's the financial side. I mentioned that we went in and created this wallet system from the start, meaning that we can reconcile all the revenue real time. We can give you access to funds right away. We can also give your customers access to their funds right away. You can make revenue share models and promotion codes, and all these things can be built into the system because we are allowed to sit on the funds. And in the system today, we have more than 1 million wallets. So that's really this is big scale already. It gives huge amount of advantages on feature sides on how well the experience works for everyone, but it's regulated, right? So we have a company called Monta Pay. We are going through a banking license right now. We are running these FBO setups with JP Morgan in some countries. It's not. It makes it a lot harder, right?
Right. You need a license in each country.
It's exciting.
Yeah. In Europe, though, you just need one license, or you need.
You can do one in Europe and you can roll it out. But
yeah. And the UK, though, you need a separate one in the UK? Or?
Yeah, right now you do, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a huge investment we did into that. Then I think two other things, like as we moved into the industry, we learned that the weakest link of all the from end to end of charging, all the way the car connecting up to the power grid, the weakest link will define the user experience. So you can't just no matter how good an app we would build on system, if the firmware on the charger is problematic or the installation is not done well, and that way of thinking, making sure that we can say that we just built this building block, but if everyone else is not taken care of and doesn't have access to the data and they're not set up in the way where they understand when there's problem with their stuff, then it's going to come back to us. So we went very deep on building these partnerships out and SLAs out, and a lot of the hardware manufacturers are actually customers of Monta today, because we build a full test suite of how to actually, when they do no firmware, they can test it up against the system. We provide all the data to them, so we tell them hardware manufacturer A, like this is how you're performing, this is how your competitors are performing, this is what you should be working on. So kind of raise the bar in the industry. And the fourth thing is on support. So I think everyone else is outsourcing this. We insourced it. We think that support is just such a massive part of this industry.
Right.
Not just to help the EV drivers. I think that's important. I think that's it's a funny thing in this industry that if you go and buy EV, no one is going to show you anything. You're going to roll out of the dealership tomorrow, and no one has taught you how to charge. And then you come to the first charger, you're going to figure out what is the plugs, how do I connect it, how do I unlock the cable. So a lot of the education lands with us, and so we can see like customers coming in the first 2 weeks. There's a lot of questions, and then they kind of figure it out, right? But it's also the feedback loop for us. Like this is what we are learning firsthand. So our support is very integrated in the organization, and we learn a lot every day, and we use that to improve the product.
Yeah, amazing. No, thank you for that. I think it's awesome. Yeah, it really is such a big vision, right? And yeah, maybe tell us a little bit around, let's think about milestones. I mean, you've only been around for 5 years, right? It's pretty fast growth, but tell us about a couple of milestones you're particularly kind of pleased with.
So we today we have more than 200,000 connected chargers on the platform. I think that's a pretty impressive one. No one is close to that number, but it's also we're growing 10K a month. I think that's equally impressive for us. We're nearing the 1 million users in the app. That's also starting to be an interesting kind of platform to work with. So I think for us, that's always the numbers we're looking at. It's like how many chargers do we have connected and have under administration? That's our North Star KPI as well. The more we can have of that, the more interesting we will be. But also the more data we have on improving the systems. So that's our currency, and that's our seats, what you call it. That's active charge points, as we call it.
Active charge points, yeah, understand. And I was just like researching a little bit around the marketplace for this, but it was something like, am I right in thinking there's about, I'm thinking Europe, right? 750,000 public EV chargers, something along those lines, but apparently the market. It will need over 9 million by 2030, like over the next 5 years. So it's like a 10x, at least a 10x kind of growth in terms of the charging market in the next 5 years. Is that how you see it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's public charging, and public charging is the smallest segment within EV charging.
Is it? Right. Yeah. I was going to say, is the largest segment is the fleet segment? Is it? Is that the main kind of the largest market?
Home.
Okay.
Home is half of the market. And then you have a business segment, which is like 30-40%. And then you have public charging. But public charging will drive a lot of the kilowatts, but there's going to be fewer stations. A lot of the stations will be installed at destination, as we call it, which is like at your home, at your workspace, at the gym, at the mall, like where you can park. Yeah. If you go to Norway now, you can see parking houses there where they just entire floors, all the parking lots just have a charger. So if you go to the mall, you just plug in, and you don't need 22 kilowatts. Like you're gonna be there for 4 hours. It's fine to just top it up every time you're charging. Every time you're parking. So I think that is what we believe a lot in. Is like you're gonna see a lot more of that, right? And then. Yeah, sure. The petrol stations of the world will put up chargers for the highways, and we need that as well, especially for trucking, heavy duty, as we call it. But for commercial or for privates, if they can charge where they're parking, that solves 99% of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always remember hearing in the UK, we have this big kind of mandate to do away with petrol cars by, I think it was by 2030. It might be pushed out, actually. And what we realized is the infrastructure isn't really set up. Still when people kind of go out and they take their car out and maybe they live in a flat, it's not, it's pretty slow in terms of the number of stations there are around the place. And I don't know how much it's growing. I don't know if the UK is is similar to other European countries with this, and how much growth there is in these new kind of, new places to charge, as it were.
So I think UK is fairly average in terms of charging infrastructure available versus the amount of cars. UK is not totally in the front, but they're up there doing pretty well above the middle. And I think the way we see it is in the start, everyone is screaming about more infrastructure, and then you're going to see some different waves where then infrastructure gets a little bit in front, or the cars gets a little bit in front, and there will be some pains, or they will be underutilized, and that's how the adoption is going to be, right? It's deploying the infrastructure is long-term plans. If you want to do a supercharger station tomorrow, it's probably 2 years before you're live. Right? So that's the thing, right? That for the companies which are investing into this, for them to really feel safe about that, they need to see some stability for everyone around them, right? That the incentives the governments are putting out is not changed every quarter, right? That we're going to see some stability in how this grows, so you can predict a little bit on what to do. And then I think you also need to see the different segments picking up on it, right? So for big charging stations to really work well, you need to have privates there. You need to have the light duty. You need to have the heavy duty, because they kind of charge at different patterns, which will really kind of increase the utilizations, which is needed, right? But I think in Nordics now, you start seeing plenty of sites which are highly profitable, and I think that kind of proves the case now. You also have Fastnet, which have been kind of breaking even at this point. It's starting to work, but that's the problem. It's the scale, right? That for you to really work well, you probably need something like 3,000 to 5,000 stations in DC at least, more in AC, or it could also be less in AC depending on how you set up. But and I think a lot of the UK companies are not there yet, right? So a lot of the CPOs went in a little bit early and burned a lot of money, and now investments are not as easy. Everyone is waiting for some kind of consolidation roll up, but no one is kind of daring to do it because they're all loss making, right?
Right. Yeah. Where do you see the market evolving then? It's fascinating in terms of where we are right now. So, how would you see it evolving in the next kind of 5 years, as it were?
The way my mind is right now is on I think I look at it in different segments. So I say home charging. I think you're gonna see mainly utilities doing well there, because they can cross sell and get a lot out of those. I was hoping to see some of these smart home players kind of going in this direction as well, but haven't seen any moves from Google and Amazon and Microsoft and those on it. And then I think in the semi-public business segments, it's going to be pretty fragmented for a long time, and I think I'm not sure it's ever going to consolidate that much, because it's just pretty complicated. It's a little bit tailored solution. If you have a company, you need something special for you, and that means the local players are just a little bit better at adapting to that. Then they have usable hardware available. They have maybe use Monta, they maybe use a couple of other systems, and they can kind of sell into that. And at the same time, they don't need massive margins because they're running it fairly lean. I can see that take a big part of the market. It might end up being pretty product-led in that sense as well. But let's see. And then I think on public DC, I imagine it's going to be a big consolidation. I was hoping to see oil and gas stepping into that right now, but it looks like they're kind of holding that breath at least the next 3.5 years and see what will happen there. Also, the big deep pockets, Black Rocks of the world, expecting them to take a role eventually. They are in Ionity, but they could do a lot more if they wanted to. But I think it boils down to if there was a platform to invest from where someone have proven this works across countries, across different use cases and charting, and have made it profitable, then that would be something to really build from, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just it's a fascinating space to kind of be in, really, isn't it? It really is. What would it have been like for you, like when you think about, I'm fascinated. Like, how many people at the company right now?
So we are 300.
So you're 300, and I'd love to because you kind of closed the Series B in 24, probably just over a year ago or so, right? Yeah. That was your last major financing kind of initiative, as it were, right? So I think your total funding was about 130 million, I think it was, as it were. Yeah. At what point, if you don't mind me asking, but at what point are you looking for either cash positive or EBITDA kind of profitable business? I mean, what the kind of plays with something like that, as opposed to continually investing in the scale up and the infrastructure, as it were?
Yeah, so we do that in waves, right? So after you take an investment round, you go out and obviously invest a lot into yourself, and then you can kind of steer it from that point and saying like, okay, do we believe that we should go out and take more money again in a year, 2 or 3, or are we going closer to break even at this point? We believe the market is super young, right? So like a lot is not figured out, and there's a lot more market shares to capture. So I think as long as that's as long as that's meaningful for us to keep growing and building up the positions, and we can do that in a affordable way and not giving up the entire company, that's the path we're after, right? We believe that on the software side, there's going to be very few players in the end, which have kind of dominating the space. We have taken the position now as the biggest one, so we're a bit more balanced now in terms of how we're investing and saying like we don't need to be 2, 3, 4 times the other ones, but we need to stay in front, and then we need to move towards closer to break evens over the next couple of years. So we have, but I think you should see it as it's so you have the cards to play, right? We don't want to be cornered where we position ourselves in a way where we keep burning a lot and there's no way back to break even, and suddenly we can't raise money, and that means we are in a bad spot. So that's how we're doing, right? So we're gonna balance it up, and then like towards the end of the runway, we're gonna make sure that we have the upper hand to decide: are we gonna run this into break even, or are we gonna go to the market and fundraise?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose with 200,000 charges now on the market growing by 10x, would it be fair to say you're looking for 10x growth over the next 5 years of your business?
Yeah, but I think we can do more than that as well, right? I think there's still some markets where market shares are not what could be improved as well, right? So we can grow both vertically and horizontally that way. And then there's also like related products on top of it you can add, right? So I think we can do more than that, but it's the markets are growing like 30% year on year itself. So everything below that, and you're losing market share.
Right? Yeah. No, I get it. What have been the biggest challenges? I mean, growing from 0 to 300 in 5 years. What are the biggest growing pains you've had to kind of deal with, as it were, and how have they affected the business?
So I think people is always the hardest kind of thing to get right? And we grew a lot, and like then we put more structure to it, and then there was too much structure to it, and now we have to go a little bit back and say, hey guys, we're still a startup. We don't need to have all these corporate processes. Just out there, do stuff, and balancing that every day. I think that's the masterpiece, right? And then I think lately here, the last year, like with AI coming in, I think that's just kind of, I'll say, like not changing everything yet, but at least it puts everything up in the air in terms of how you should think about where you really need headcount and where AI can be doing a lot of that for you. So we're using that a lot in a lot of teams already, and it's starting to give really good improvements on outputs. And it's still pretty bad, right? So like, where's it going to be in a few years? Like that's what we need to kind of get our heads around and start planning for slowly as well.
Right. Yeah. Just tell me with that, has that really happened over the last 5-6 months, principally, right? Or well, when did AI start being a real kind of focus as it relates to headcount and utilization, as it were?
Yeah. So that, I think it started 2 years back, where it was like,
Right.
now you could start using it for certain things. And if you know how to kind of talk to it, it could get pretty decent results. And then it like slowly became better and better, where you needed less training on how to interact with it. It could do more and more things automatically. It's still not. I don't think in any department it delivers the same quality as someone who really is really, really good at what they're doing. But it can get you 60-80% there, but it can do it in 30 seconds, right? So I think that is the magic, like, and figuring out how to use it. And I think the curiosity about trying it out and keep learning from it, and then designing the organization for it, right? I think like one of the things we are looking at right now is like, if this becomes reality, then you need to create this huge database of everything you need to know about Monta. So everything from our business plan to how you answer support tickets to how the platform is coded. If you can centralize that and you can feed that into like different AI engines, and that's hard because you can't put that much data into AI. So you need to kind of pick the pieces of information real time and then feed them in, or you pre-train a lot of models, but then pick between the models. But if that becomes a reality, then and you had actually managed to build something like that, then you can implement that in many parts of your product and organization afterwards as small help agents doing stuff, right? So I think that's kind of one of my side projects right now, is to figure out like how far we could take that and what data would be interesting to have injected in. But yeah, I think it's going to change a lot. That we already at the mindset right now that when there's a task we don't have headcount for, we don't hire for it. We try to digitalize it with agents.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. And again, fascinating. I'd love to dive a little bit more into what you said earlier as well, just around, you think about growing pains and that journey of that fight around structure and being nimble and then putting structure on things. What's the key to maintaining efficiency whilst being nimble? You know, what should you, if you were like a CEO going through this journey of hyper growth, what advice would you give for things to watch out for or things not to do, as it were?
I would say I'm very obsessed on execution, and I believe that if you get that right, then you can also just make a lot more errors and you can correct on the way. I think that's the advice I would give myself again. Like only bring people into the organization who wants to execute. Anyone who just wants to talk and do strategy, don't have them in. Like there's not a room for them. Right? And I think unfortunately that's just like there's a lot of people who wants to have those jobs where they're not in the execution mode. They just want to be able to delegate and create processes and decks and they apply and they want to come in and work, and they come from big companies or consultancies or but somehow it's unaligned to what the startup really wants. At least my startup, like it is every day, like I'm on the floor every day talking to customers, helping engineers in troubleshooting, like helping support tickets. That's kind of the job, and you need to love that.
Yeah, brilliant. Do you still classify yourself as a startup?
Yes.
Do you think of it like that?
100%.
Yeah, and it must make it difficult, like around that. You're quite right. It doesn't sound to me like having a consulting background or a corporate strategic background, you'd be a good fit for your company. Do you think do you think people need to have worked in that startup environment by and large to be successful in a startup environment?
It's one of the things we're looking very much for, right? Have you tried startup experience on your own body? Because from outside it can just look like a lot of fun, right? But it's
Yeah,
going to drive you mad every day, and can you live with that, right? And can you accept that things are not perfect, right? And they're also not going to be perfect tomorrow. And now you're not assigned to it anymore, so now it's probably never going to be perfect. That's a mindset you need to have tried, because like for a lot of people they think they want it, but when they then experience it, they burn out, or they don't get the energy from not finishing tasks.
yeah. No, absolutely. Fascinating. And do you think, you've been doing it for 5 years. Do you think there's a longevity about doing the CEO role as well? Because it's all encompassing, right? I don't know what your life is like outside of your work. Like, if you think of 100%, how much of your life is your thought processes are Monta?
Yeah, it's a massive part, right? So I'm married, I have 2 kids, and that takes up the other part. But you have to give up on a lot of things. Like, at least I had to, right? This is I wouldn't be able to succeed 40 hours a week. It's not getting. I'm not getting around the things. I wouldn't be able to understand my company well enough in the current structure with not putting in the hours. So I definitely think that you need to have that, right? But it should also not feel like work. I think that's the key, right? This morning I got up 5:25, and that was because I really wanted to be part of some projects, and there was some interesting deep debates I've been involved in. I wanted to continue and all that. So that's what drives you up of the bed, right? It's not because I need to be at the office at 8 o'clock that then you're gonna burn out instantly. And long term, can you sustain that? I think some people can, right? But I think it's all like it's ups and downs, right? You can't put in that much energy into it 12 months a year. And you need to cool off a little bit now and then.
You need to recharge for sure, right?
Yeah, you need to recharge and change direction in your work on a different side of in the company. So it's all not going to be the same. But I think people are often asking that, right? So what's after Monta? And I was like, yeah, but if I think about it, that's definitely not going back to a job, right? I think that would be even harder to think of, right? And then starting all over, that means that you just have less resources to do things with. So I think it could be very interesting to just continue that for a long time, and then just have that freedom with your board to say, like, now and then we need to add some projects over here or start this division up, because that's also important for me, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you look like you're right in the moment to me. That's where you need to be, right?
Yeah.
Present and in the moment and on the journey. So listen, you're on a fabulous journey, and really appreciate you coming on. I mean, a few things. We learned loads, about the kind of marketplace and about, where it's going and how you see things, and just your journey and how you've gone around it and approached it. And, it's been fascinating. So, and loads around your style and, getting a sense of you and how you like to work as well. So that's all. That's awesome, Casper. So listen, thanks so much for coming on today. Really enjoyed chatting to you.
Likewise, Simon. It was a really good conversation.
Yeah, it's really good. And to all my guests, thanks for tuning in. I mean, it's been a really fascinating discussion. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next show.